Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar today, our Ask a Reseller webinar with our good friend Chris. I'm Chad Hill and I'm joined by our team in Rochester, New York.
Hey, thanks, Chad. Yeah, this is Chris Wibby here, and we're joined by our entire Rochester team, so everyone can just shout out a big hello.
Hello.
Such a nice, warm welcome. I love those. Well, again, wanted to just very quickly turn this over, set some ground rules for the webinar today, and then get right into the subject matter. So just in terms of some housekeeping, as always, we are recording this webinar. We will be placing the recording on our website under the resources webinars section by tomorrow. If you aren't familiar with GoToWebinar, there is a section where you have the ability to ask questions. I see someone has their hand raised right now. Looks like no questions yet, but a couple of people with their hands raised. So feel free to ask any questions in the webinar. And if you do have any issues come up, ask a question and we'll get that to Chris. So without any further ado, let's jump into the subject matter here. I wanted to start off by just introducing Chris. Chris has been a reseller of ours for quite a while, but has an interesting story and twist here because he was our largest reseller a few years back, decided to try some different things, and now is back and a growing reseller again with HubShout. So we're super happy to have him back. And when we were talking in our monthly account review meeting, we thought it would be a great idea to bring some of his experiences building his agency, but also some of his experiences prior to the agency he's built that really, I think, set the stage a little bit for a lot of you out there who are now building your agencies, and we can hopefully help you cut a few corners that Chris maybe has learned the hard way. So Chris, welcome today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the intro.
Well, I wanted to, again, we had pre-rehearsed some of this webinar and we went through some of the topics we wanted to cover. We also collected some questions from people. So we wanted to start off here by just having you give us some background on, how you got into this business.
I got into business years ago. I realized that, sales was where I wanted to be. So I've pretty much been in sales my whole life. But I was in the print yellow page business for several years, and then I just worked my way up from a phone rep all the way up to national sales director for yellowpages.com. And my role was to pretty much just travel around and teach people how to sell the internet and help grow the brand yellowpages.com to local advertisers. And then yellowpages.com was sold to Bell South, and later AT&T acquired them. And so, wanting to stay, keep my bills paid at the time, I wanted to stay with the company, but the only thing that was available was a premise sales, which is outside sales to local businesses, and I just continued to do that. And as time went on, my partner and I, realizing that the print yellow pages was dying. I mean, the writing was on the walls for anyone that just wanted to pay attention. It's pretty obvious that Google was pretty much the standard for people searching for goods and services. And so we started our own agency back in '06.
Excellent. And I think one of the things that a lot of people were interested in here was that when you started that agency, you started off with a focus on large accounts, and then you had this pivot. So sort of take everyone through where you started, what you were doing initially, and then what led you to the decision and the pivot that you made.
Well, I used to rub elbows with a lot of guys in the industry that were thought leaders, and they all had very good connections and things like that. So we used our expertise and our connections to land some pretty big accounts. I mean, Walgreens and Home Depot are just a few, but big box retailers was the thought process of the business model at the time. And basically, it was showing brands how to interact with each other. For example, Home Depot might have Black & Decker as a brand under their umbrella. So we would help Home Depot and Black & Decker collaborate online so that they could, schedule presentations and things like that. And that's what the goal was, to help grow those brands. And, life was good, but naturally when you're dealing with big companies, you got a long sales process. There's lots of decision makers. They're very protective of their brand before they're going to, approve anything. So we just realized that, the money was there, but it just wasn't really what we wanted to do. And we weren't growing as fast as we knew we could. So 2010 was pretty much, we turned everything around and started looking for small businesses.
Excellent. And I put a slide in here just to, again, summarize some of those points, because I think, a lot of people get started and they say, let's start with the SMB market, but as we get bigger and more experienced, we're going to go after bigger accounts and get rid of the small guys. So again, talk to us a little bit more about these pros and cons, and if you were doing it again, would you make the same choices, and how do you talked about the sales cycles and whatnot, but anything else that you'd like to give as advice to our listeners today?
Well, obviously, it's always good to have some elephants in your client list, and they bring large amounts of revenue and everything looks good in the bank. But at the end of the day, by the time you really calculate how much time it took to even close the sale to start with, the time it takes to get something done, the time it takes to get something approved, when you really factor in how much money you're actually making, it's not as much as you might think. So on paper, yeah, there's money coming in, but we started realizing, heck, man, we got almost 20 years of experience working with local businesses. Why not take the knowledge and the techniques that we're using to close these big companies and use the same techniques for smaller businesses? And yeah, you're going to make less money per account, but if you make a small amount of money on a lot of accounts versus a lot of money on a handful of accounts, you really end up making more money in the long run, because if you lose one or two small ones, it doesn't hurt you. But best believe, you lose a $10,000 account, it hurts. So it's just a much better business model to target local business owners.
Excellent. We had a few people here saying they're having some trouble with audio. So if you don't mind, if people can hear okay, maybe just type a 1 into the question box. Give me a couple ones here. Yep, looks like we're okay. All right, let's keep going. Okay. So Chris, this was one of my favorite things that you mentioned, and I really had never even thought of this idea at all. But why don't you talk a little bit about where you started, when you made that pivot to the SMB market? Tell me about, and you have a lot of great ideas on getting leads and getting new clients, but this one I just loved. Tell us a little bit about this idea, this Lowe's idea, as I call it.
Well, the thought process behind Lowe's, and naturally this will work at Home Depot and any of those places where contractors are going to go, you pretty much can guarantee these guys are going to go there early in the morning before they got to get their supplies, get their lumber, get whatever they need before they go out on the job site. And the parking lot is literally littered with, plumbers, electricians, painters, carpet guys. They're everywhere, And what we did in the beginning is, we would just kind of get up early in the morning, and just go and just visit some of these places. And if we saw that they have a website, we'd write down the number. If they didn't have a website on their truck or van or whatever, then that's even better, because if they don't recognize in this day and age that they need a website, well, that's a pretty good candidate. So and then you get a good idea of the value of the revenue that company's making, because if it's one guy in a Ford Ranger, with a ladder hanging over the roof of the cab, he's probably not somebody you want to call, But if you see these guys with the nice trucks and the nice trailers and they got graphics everywhere, it's definitely worth trying to get an audience with that type of guy. So there's a lot of ways that you can think outside the box to try to, I'd be at a traffic light And I'd be like, hey man, pull over, I got to talk to you. We were literally, we were not afraid to strike up a conversation, and that's how you got to be in these businesses. Don't be afraid of rejection, and that's how we got started.
And one of the other things you had mentioned, Chris, was this idea though that you felt like you had something to teach the world. You knew that this was a great product. You had experience with the phone book, and yellowpages.com. You knew that world and how it really wasn't good for small businesses. And you had this new product that you felt like was something you really wanted to get the message out on. So maybe just talk about that, like, because we do get that a lot. People feel like I don't have the conviction. I don't feel confident in what I'm selling. How do you deal with that? Because clearly the more confident you are in your product and what you're doing, that's going to translate and communicate to the person you're speaking with. What do you do to make sure you've got that conviction?
Well, one thing that I tell people all the time, and I've learned this as a sales trainer over the years, and I tell people this, is that 51% of all closing effectiveness comes directly from enthusiasm. Your excitement about your product, your service, it has to transfer from in your words to your prospect. And if you don't believe in your product, if you don't believe that you have the best web design company, or if you don't believe that SEO is where they need to be, that's gonna chime through when you're talking to people. So before you even try to strike up a conversation, you have to know and believe in your heart that what you're doing is going to help people. And if you know that, then you don't have to sell. And that's the trick right there. I mean, we're going to go over a lot of stuff, but the whole thing, the bottom line is don't sell. Educate. If you educate people, become an educator, then they're going to want to buy because you've already established yourself as a thought leader. And once you can do that, and you're proud of what you're doing, then the sales will come. I mean, it's just you just knock them down, and just knock them out the park each time.
Awesome. And again, when we spoke, you had a number of other ideas, and so I jotted down a few of these here. I thought maybe you could take everybody through some of the other ways to start lead gen. Again, some of these are not, I'd say they're not the conventional ones that we often talk about. And actually, the one that I'd say is more conventional is the networking group. But you've got some interesting angles here with Meetup and starting your own weekly networking group. So take us through some of these. I think these are all really interesting for everybody on the phone.
Okay. I hope everybody can hear me good, because your audio was just a little choppy, so I don't know if mine is choppy or not. But
yeah, get an audio check again, guys. Sorry that we're doing this again, but I think it's okay, Chris. I can hear you pretty well. We're getting ones here. Everybody's looking good. So go ahead, Chris.
Okay. You want to think outside the box. You want to be very active in your community in trying to meet business owners. It's very easy nowadays to start meetings and even join existing groups. I mean, there's all kinds, and pretty much all the cities in the country. If you get on the internet and just look, you'll see that there's groups for just about everything you can imagine. And it doesn't even have to be about marketing. It can be about bike riding. It could be about, try to join groups that you think business owners would have a high probability chance of finding the time to do. And don't go in there trying to sell. That's the biggest mistake you can make. Meet people, network, and talk to people. Find out, hey, are you a business owner, or do you know any business owners? And people just start talking, and next thing you know, you can just, hand out your business card and just start establishing relationships. And next thing you know, I mean, you'd be surprised how things can turn around, and you get a lot of leads that way. You see people at Starbucks all the time making sales presentations, and usually the person that is getting the information is usually a business owner, and it's probably a Yellow Page rep or some other kind of sales company trying to meet with them to sell them something, and you just go up to that person, hand them your card. You literally have nothing to lose, and I've literally picked up business that way by people getting pitched by someone else, and I just kind of notice it and wait till they're finished and just kind of hand them my card and say, hey, give me a shout if you ever want to talk about another option. You just have to refuse to be outworked. Just want it bad enough and find ways to go out there and meet people. The other thing you can do is a lot of these little coffee shops and places, they have business cards all over the place, and you just collect cards and be selective and pick up business cards, look at the web address, go back to your office, do some research on the website and see if they're ranking for the keywords. If they're not ranking, then naturally that's a prospect. If you go to Google and type in any vertical, and you don't want to look at the first page, you want to look at page 2, page 3, page 4, look at those guys and build a list of prospects and just start giving them a call and just stay active and the sales will come.
Chris, we had one question. We've actually had several questions, and I should mention that I'm going to hold most of these till the end, but this one's actually, I think, pretty relevant to what we're talking about right now. Someone said that you should speak to the hardcore sales training viewpoint that you gained at yellowpages.com. And then I'm just reading this, that mindset and skill set he had that set him up to win. So I'm assuming that maybe Rob, who asked that question or made that statement, maybe also had some background as a Yellow Page sales rep. But Chris, do you have any thoughts on that or want to add anything else to that comment?
Well, number one, you have to qualify effectively. You have to, there's pretty much 4 questions for qualifying, and they're always pretty much the same thing. And that is, does the prospect need what you're selling? Can a prospect use what you're selling? Can a person or prospect afford the product? And do they want the product? So if you haven't identified a high probability prospect before you pick up the phone to call them or talk to them, then you're wasting your time. I never randomly call people just because I see them not on the first page of Google. I always go to their site first, look at what their products and services are, and just because they don't show up on one key phrase, they may be number 1 on all the other services. So you want to look at all their services and see if they're ranking for them. And if they're not ranking for pretty much anything across the board, well, then you already know they need what you're selling. And can they use what you're selling? Obviously, that's a pretty easy one to answer. Everybody can use tools and ways to help them grow their business, whether it be social media, whether it be blogging, article writing. Business owners don't have the time to do what we do. Okay, so when it comes to affordability, you pretty much just have to just go with your gut feeling on that, because you can have a dynamite website and not have a dime. So I wish I could say there was a magic trick on qualifying that, but typically if in the early stages until you get really good in one particular vertical, just stick with, and this comes from Yellow Pages. If you think of a house, all the things that go on into building a house, there's so many verticals or contractors that you can contact from the roof down. So if you're thinking roofing contractors, siding contractors, landscaping contractors, painting contractors, hardwood floor installers, even electricians, plumbers, you can pretty much think of anything that deals with the home and go to Google, type in that keyword, and you've got a whole entire vertical. And any one of those, in any market, I don't care what market you're in, there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of plumbers or HVAC guys, or they're everywhere. So you just go in and you just start identifying them, but before you call them, you have to make sure that they're a qualified prospect. Don't waste time if it's not a high probability candidate for what you're trying to do.
Great, Chris. And as you started going into that home services niche, I went ahead and advanced to the next slide because this really, as we continued our discussion prior to this, to the webinar today, we talked about growing past that initial 10 clients or however many that initial group is. And you talked about selecting a vertical. So I think you covered some of the main things around picking the home services. I really like the home services category as well because, as you said, they're relatively easy to find, and there are so many things that are common about somebody that works on someone's home around scheduling and websites. But at the same time, there are lots and lots of different vendors because homes have a lot of parts. So I really like that category, and we do get the question a lot about, should I focus on a geography or should I focus on a vertical? So do you have any other thoughts about being geographically focused and just being the master of your market, or going deep into a niche and focusing there?
If for anybody that's new in the game and they're just starting their business, I would highly recommend keeping it within your local market and networking with local businesses and growing that way. And once you make a sale in a vertical, let's say it's roofing companies, and you get 2 roofing companies to rank on Google, well, naturally you can then go to any other market, and if you're in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and you're ranking them in Fredericksburg, well, now you can jump into Richmond, Virginia. And the beauty of the internet is that the rules are the same. Doesn't matter what city you're in, what state you're in. So if you call someone that's not in your local market, if you can demonstrate that you've got success in their industry, it doesn't matter if you're not in their city or not. I mean, I've never had anyone question me on that because everyone recognizes that the internet is virtual. But the thing is, I say all that to say this: once you get enough clients and you're making money, you want to ultimately get into more doctors, lawyers, and more professional type clients, because they're going to stick with you longer, and they're going to pay their bills on time. Because contractors, I love them, but sometimes they're not the best with finances, and you do got to hold their hand a lot of times. But the good thing is that the number on their website or the number on their truck typically is their cell phone. So you don't have to worry about gatekeepers in the early stages. So you can make sales faster with contractors until you get enough clients. And then once you've proven that it works, it's a lot easier to go to a doctor, lawyer, or something like that and say, hey, we have success and we can do the same for you. And then now you're off to the races.
Great advice. So Chris, I have a few more questions that have come in that I think would make sense to hit right now. One of the questions was, and I think this is related to that getting started period. One of the questions was, how do you overcome the lack of social proof or client base when you were first getting started? Did you do that with steep discounts, or did you do that with other creative ways to overcome that situation?
That is a great question. The one thing that before I ever had any clients, I just leveraged my experience. That I've been working with local businesses for over 15 years. I know what keeps them up at night. I know if you've got inventory that you can't move, that's a problem. But at the end of the day, when you're talking to people, especially if it's over the phone, if you've never met that person face to face, the trick is to say, I just wanted to see if you're open to the possibility. Okay, that phrase right there is going to make you guys a lot of money, because if you can just ask them, are you open to the possibility of me showing you a way that I can increase your business, then we should meet, for 30 minutes one day this week or next week. That's it. You don't call people up to sell web design or marketing services. You simply want to gain agreement that they're open to the possibility of learning how you can help them grow their business. if they're at least open to that and they're willing to give you, 30 minutes of time, and it usually takes, once you get in, it might be 45 minutes, might be an hour, but people, 30 minutes is usually enough for, a business owner to give you and say, look, I'll meet you at Starbucks, I'll meet you, we can meet in my office, we can meet anywhere you want, so it's not going to interfere with your daily schedule. But that is the key, is to, if you don't have any clients to show as proof, then you have to show that you are an expert at understanding how the internet works. And you do that by, there's a lot of tools out there that you can pull reports on a website and see if what's wrong with the site. And you can say, listen, when we meet, I'll have a report I can show you that'll demonstrate what's wrong with your site. So you really have nothing to lose. But it's just all a matter if you're open to the possibility. If not, hey, I wish you all the best. But but if you are, it'll be a very educational half hour of your time.
Chris, another couple questions on this sort of contractor or getting started angle. One of the questions is there a particular size or type of contractor? I think you mentioned this, but that's better than others. You had an answer there, and then I'm just going to throw this in there so you maybe can answer both of these. One of the objections people get is that Jaden was telling us that he always gets the reply that my cousin or someone is doing their website SEO for half the cost. How do you compete against those guys? So what size contractor is better than others? And then my guess is that for those really small guys, and we've heard this as well, the cousin is doing the website. What do you do when you get that response?
Two very, very good questions. The first one is, you don't want like the guy in a truck in a ladder. You want to have a contractor that has employees, that has a payroll, that it's okay if it's a family-run business, if it's husband and wife team, but they got employees. You don't want and you can find that out really quick over the phone or even on the website. If they have a website and it's all about John's AC, and it's just one guy in a truck, then you really don't want to waste your time. But contractors usually want to show the world that they are big companies and that they have a team. So I don't waste my time if it looks like it's a small a small amount of small company, because they're not going to be able to afford it. And then when it comes to the question about well, I've got a cousin or a relative that can build my site or did it for cheap. Well, that's great. I mean, that's not what I'm here to talk to you about, because there's two different kinds of websites. There's an online brochure, which basically just tells people about your business, and that's pretty much what you have now, because no one can find an online brochure. If you go to Google and type in your keywords, on your mobile device or your desktop, your website is nowhere to be found. So therefore, you have an online brochure that if someone happens to see your web address on your truck, or you happen to give someone your business card, then they'll find your website. That's not what we build. We only build optimized websites. And there's a huge difference between an online brochure and an optimized website. And what I want to do is, if you give me 30 minutes of your time, I'd sit down and show you the difference and I can give you a bird's eye view with a report that will show not only your site, but compare it to your biggest competitor that has an optimized website. So now the prospect is thinking, hey, I had this college kid build my website for $500, but he's right, it doesn't work. It doesn't show up on Google. So, they won't argue the point that they need an optimized website. What you want to do is explain to them the difference between a brochure website and an optimized website, and how having an optimized website will help grow their business. If that's not, and here's the kicker. All this information is going to be left for free. We do all the research for free, and at the end of the meeting, I'm going to give you this report, and then you can, whether you want to do business with me or not, at least you know what's wrong with your website and why no one's calling you or no one can find you. And typically that's enough for someone to want to give you 30 minutes of their time.
That's great, Chris. We have still some more questions rolling in, and I should say I have a cold today, so maybe part of the scratchiness is that my voice is barely here, but we'll keep going to the next slide. I think actually we reserved this next slot to, Chris, get into some of the sales techniques and closing techniques that we had talked about. So we didn't jot them down, and I will say here that we do have someone taking copious notes, and we're going to put this together in a document so that along with the slideshow, we will have most of the topics that Chris has covered written out so that you guys can actually read some of his responses, because you can see he's a wealth of knowledge, and getting it all into a slide was going to be impossible. So Chris, why don't you pick it up with some sales techniques?
Well, number one, you have to, like I mentioned earlier, you have to first believe in what you're presenting, and don't be a salesman, be an educator. Educate people on how Google works. And if you don't understand how Google works, and you don't understand why they need a blog or why they need link building, then you need to first educate yourself so that you understand it heart and soul, so that that enthusiasm will pour out when you're speaking to a prospect. So you have to, don't go into this thing just because you know everything about web design and hosting and how emails work, and think that that's enough to make a business owner want to do business with you. You have to know and be able to explain in layman's terms why these things are necessary and why they're not ranking. And once you identify that you got a good prospect, understand that that there's always going to be resistance, and you're going to get rejection. Don't take rejection personal. Not everybody's going to want what you have to sell, or not everybody's going to want to give you time to explain your business model, and that's okay, but you just keep pounding it out and stay the course, and you will get some yeses. The other thing is you have to know how to ask a closing question. You might be really good at getting the appointment. You might be really good at doing your research and sitting down with them and explaining everything, but maybe your problem is you're just not closing. And if that's the case, then you really have to start to drill down on what it is that you're doing in the presentation that's preventing you from making a sale. One thing that I have a pet peeve about is when people say, is there anything that you can do to, can you just, leave me something or send me something in the mail, for example. I don't send anything in the mail, but what I do when I'm on the phone, I'll ask them, well, is it okay if I just come and drop it off personally this afternoon? That's a much better way of overcoming the, hey, could you just send me something, send me what you got to say in the mail. Just say, hey, I do have something I want you to see. Is it okay if I personally drop it off? And then they say, sure, it's okay. You can come. If this afternoon is not, if they're busy, so well, can I come by Friday? So now you pretty much got an appointment. So you come in there and you have the information, and even if the owner isn't there when you drop it off, at least now the gatekeeper has seen you. You can smile, you can shake their hand, you can leave your business card, and and then let them know, hey, I'm the good guy. I'm here to help you guys. They need to see what I have to talk to them about. And then next time you make a phone call, now you got a friend on the other end, and I promise you, it'd be a lot easier to get your foot in the door. So on top of that, you got to have some creative ways to make a close before at the end. During the sales process, you can ask them questions like, what do you think of this so far? Does this make sense? Is this what you had in mind? Do you think this would be a huge improvement on what you're doing right now? Ask some questions before, in the middle of the presentation before you get to the end to test their heartbeat and see where they are, because you'd be surprised. They might say, well, no, not exactly, and then, okay, well, great. Well, I'm glad you said that. Let me explain that a little bit better. And now you can eliminate some objections before you get down to what it's going to cost, just because you asked some trial close questions before the actual close came in. Now, what I'm about to say, may not chime through to a lot of people, but with me, like I said before, I don't believe in selling anymore. I believe in educating, and I believe that if you really love what you're doing and you know you can help that person, you don't really have to ask for the money. I can't tell you how many times where I'm at the end of my presentation, I show them everything that they need to see, and I don't even care to try to get them to give me a credit card right then and there. I'm perfectly fine with having my prices and everything print in printed form and leave it with them to digest. Sometimes, they're ready to make a move right then, and I'll sell them right then and there. But don't be afraid to leave the information, because if you've done a good job in educating them, it should be a no-brainer when you leave that office that that's what they need to do. And if you leave it with that mindset, then you're going to make the sale. And you just have really good follow-up skills, and put them on a calendar to if they don't hit you back in 2 days, call them back and get back in the game. But that works well for me. Now, I've got partners in some of my other office and their sales teams. They believe in going for it right then and there. They don't want to walk out the office without a check or credit card. But I'm just telling you what works for me is to not sell. I want to build a relationship. I want them to feel that I really want to help them, that I'm successful. I dress the part, I look the part. I don't waste their time. I'm very cognizant. Think of it this way: if they're a business owner, you're a business owner. I'm taking time out of my day from running my business. I have salespeople, okay, but I'm personally coming by and meeting with you because once I saw what was going on with your website, I was like, listen, I need to meet with this guy. I can help this guy, and that's why I'm personally sitting down with you, okay? Even when I'm on the phone, listen, I'm not a telemarketer, okay? I do have people in my office that could have called you, but I'm the owner of the company, calling you because we need to sit down and have a conversation. My team has looked at your site, we looked at your competitors, we know what's going on in your market, and we can help you. And if you're open to the possibility of hearing what I have to say, sometime this week, believe me, it'd be worth every minute of your time. And you'd be surprised that if you just talk to them, on an equal ground, business owner to business owner, and not salesperson to business owner, that's where the problems come in. Don't be a salesman. Be a professional. Be a business owner. Sit down with them eye to eye and say, listen, man, this is what's going on. I understand you had a college kid build your site for $500. You know what? But what you have isn't working, okay? This will be an investment, but I promise you, if you let me lead the way, I can change your business. I've done it time and time again, and it works. Now, I know we don't have so much time on this call, but I know that there's so many very good closing techniques that you can use to help you, even if you're getting a lot of resistance. You can do I use the Columbo close a lot of times. If I'm probably showing my age here, but if you guys remember the old Columbo show, he had the murderer or the bad guy thinking he was off the hook, and he'd be leaving. He'd pick up his stuff, he'd be walking out, and then, oh, there's one more thing, and you can do the same thing. You can literally be in the process of leaving, and one thing I'll say, well, I was just wondering about something. I know that you're not going to buy today, and you feel that this may not be what you need, but can you tell me, just so I can improve, what was the real reason why you didn't want to buy today, or whatever the case may be, and just shut up and let them tell you what the real objection is. Maybe you didn't uncover it in the sales process, and then you write back into the presentation. And I have literally closed deals that way. So, but again, if you don't try to sell and just try to teach and try to educate, they're going to want it anyway.
Chris, that's a great one. I do think that one of the hardest things, because when I first got into this business, I was very focused on being the consultant, and that gets you a long way, I think, as you're saying. But one of the things that I've really just even in this last year been enlightened by is how important it is to actually have someone tell you no, so that you can actually uncover those objections, because that is so important. It doesn't feel good. You don't really want someone to say no, but if you get to that point, like you're saying, there's something powerful that happens, because whether it's the Columbo close or some other tactic, you do get a chance to really uncover the real objections, which then you got your list, and now you just go back to work. That's awesome stuff. As we get to the next the next part of the webinar here, we're right about 3:41, so we've got another 15 or so minutes before we need to wrap up. Wanted to go through some of the questions that were submitted before we jumped in, and I'm seeing that we've got a numbering issue here. But yeah, so Chris, why don't we go through this? And these are some of the similar questions that actually are kind of coming in as people hear you talk. They want to learn a little bit more about your structure, which items, what part of your team you have and run yourself, what part you outsource, and how you've built your business to scale. And let me just give you we got that first question, but let me just also throw a couple other ones in here. We had one specific person saying, do you do in running your business, is it more important for you to sell? Who does your accounting, your correspondence, et cetera, et cetera? Are you able to set yourself up to scale better? So maybe give us a little bit of an understanding of what you're doing, how you've structured your business, because there's a lot of people on this phone call, again, that are just like you, are really good at sales and aren't necessarily delivery guys. And so they're trying to assemble a team, which, hopefully the reason most people are on this phone call is because they've talked to HubShout at some point, but they're working with other third parties who have built companies to help you succeed. Tell us how you've set your business up and how you kind of made different decisions.
That's a great question. When in the early stages, I wanted to know everything. My partner, on the other hand, he's a superstar salesperson. He had no desire to know anything about web design or WordPress, Joomla. I mean, he has no idea how to do any of that. He just wanted to stay in sales. Me, on the other hand, I wanted to educate myself on every aspect of the business. So I got on YouTube. I bought books. I went to seminars. I mean, I wanted to absorb everything I could to find out how to do these things. So in the early stages, I wore a lot of hats. I would find out how to do the design websites and do logos and edit logos, edit pictures, and how to do blogs and how to do social media, and I was trying to do a lot of those things myself in the beginning, which naturally doesn't allow time for sales. So, but once I got it, and once I understood enough to be dangerous, I knew in my mind that nobody could ask me a question that I couldn't answer. And so my confidence level, when I walk into an office, man, I mean, I can literally sit down with the contractor, or I've got contracts with clients that have multi-million-dollar operations, and it all works the same. But there's a book out there called The 4-Hour Work Week, and the premise behind that is that you make more money hiring people to do things so that you free up time to do what you need to do. And in my case, it's sales. So that's exactly what led me to HubShout and why I need you guys to help me with the things that I just quite frankly don't have the time to do. But we do have internal graphics guys and designers, and we have writers, and we have social media. We have people that do that. I mean, we've got lots of offices now, but you can't, if you're thinking that you're going to save money by trying to do all these things yourself, you're really missing the boat. I promise you, if you free yourself from the challenges of trying to develop websites and trying to do all the writing and link building and all those things internally, and outsource those things and just bring in the business, the money will come. As long as you're growing your business and you're getting new clients, my thing is, when it comes down to price, and this surprises a lot of people, but you have to hear what I'm about to say so you understand it. In the early part of this presentation, we talked about the big box retailers where you're making the 10 grand a month and so on. Well, now my thought process is, if I can make $100 a month on every single client, and you get 100 clients, okay, that's $10,000 a month in reoccurring revenue, okay? Just think about that for a minute. Now, if you can go out and you can close enough deals, now it may take you a couple of years to get 100 clients, okay? I'm not going to lie about that. It just depends on how good you are at closing and how you do things. But I'm telling you that if you don't be greedy and you just keep growing your business, hire people to do the things you need to do, and just focus on what your reoccurring revenue stream is, and keep people happy, keep them. I got people been with us for 7 years now. I'm not kidding you. And they pay that bill every month because they're on the top of Google, they're loving life, and the money comes every month. And that's where the game is being played. Don't be greedy, and choose your clients wisely, and find people to handle things so you don't have to personally wear so many hats. That might have been a long explanation to the question, but
No, it's a good one. I was
that's the truth of the matter.
Responding to a few people that are asking questions here. We already talked. I think number 2, we actually talked a lot about what types of businesses are most appropriate for SEO programs. So maybe, Chris, the better thing there is, because we talked about contractors, professionals. What kind of businesses do you maybe stay away from? Have you just found over time that just are hard to either get results, or just for whatever reason you just stay away from them?
I don't like massage therapy. I don't like I'm having a brain blank here.
Well, that's okay. If you hit any more, we can come back to it. And if you have any other thoughts on just businesses that are really good fits for SEO, I usually I'll throw this in, and maybe as you're thinking, I actually think that the businesses that do best with SEO are the ones that used to be in phone books. So my answer to that is that if you think about anybody who has some new product they've just invented that there's no market for, and they need to generate demand or interest for it, is a bad fit for SEO, because people are not searching for that term right now. But any product where it's a traditional business that's been around for a while often is a very good fit for SEO. So trying to create demand for a product is not what SEO is about. Capturing existing demand, the same thing that the Yellow Pages used to be very good at, is what SEO is all about. So Chris, let's hit this 3 and 4 here. I think you've hit a lot of these, so we don't need to spend time if we don't need to. But are there any best selling points? And I think, again, you hit most of the conversion tool ideas, but any best selling points that you think we should make sure they're noteworthy of mentioning?
Well, before I answer that question, one thing just popped into my head, because this just happened recently, where I had a prospect that actually called in and wanted us to manage their SEO, and it was a brand new domain, and the lady has a online retail store where she wants to sell clothes online. And those kinds of people, those kinds of clients, I would definitely try to stay away from, because they're going to want results in a short period of time. And the reality is you're not going to get a huge amount of success with a brand new domain in very difficult verticals. So those kinds of prospects I would stay away from. As far as best selling point, again, it's what makes people buy this is the way you educate them. And you educate them by finding some type of illustration that explains how Google works. I have ways of just saying how the spiders work, and how they crawl and they index pages, and just kind of give people just a layman's explanation of how the internet works. Because if you just go in there talking about what's wrong with their website and why they're not on Google, but not really giving them, taking it, because people always tell me, man, you've told me more in this meeting than anyone's ever told me, and I feel like I know something. They feel empowered to take control of their marketing, and that is the selling point. It's not really about why they need SEO. The best selling point is teaching them how the internet works, and making them feel comfortable that you're the expert on marketing. Once you can do that, everything else just falls into place. They'll automatically know you can build websites. They'll automatically know you can write content, just because you've explained to them how the internet works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, question moving right along here, Chris. We're again almost out of time, so I think we're only going to have time for maybe one or two more questions at the most. Let's talk about contracts. This is something that comes up a lot. What do you make people do? What do you make them commit to a certain amount of time? What kind of contracts do you do?
Well, again, this may not be what a lot of people would agree to, but this is what I do. Now, when I first started, before I had a client, I always made them agree to 12-month contracts, because coming out of Yellow Pages, it was just ingrained in my head. I've been doing it for so many years that I just assumed that that's the way to do it. So I just made them agree that they had to sign a 12-month contract. Well, naturally, there's going to be some people that don't want to sign a 12-month contract, because one, you're not a big brand like Yellow Pages. Of course, if you got the brand name behind you, then it's a little easier pill to swallow, even if you don't agree with how Yellow Pages works or how yellowpages.com works, but you believe in the brand, so you'll get closes. But when you're just starting out and you don't even have any clients to prove that you know what you're talking about, well, you're gonna don't be surprised if people don't want to sign a 12-month contract. So what I do now is I go in, and number one, I don't sell, I educate, and then number two, I tell them it's going to take at least 90 days before you're going to notice any type of momentum in your campaign, okay? Because everything you do this month, you're not going to get credit from Google until the following month. So you're always a month behind. Always remember that. So the goal here is not to show you how much business you're going to make 90 days from now. The goal is to show you how much momentum we're gonna make in your visitor traffic, and show you how you've moved up in some rankings. You may not be number one 90 days from now, but 90 days from now we'll have enough evidence to where you can decide at that point, do I want to keep this momentum going or not? And I tell them that right there in the presentation. And then after that 90 days, once we've established that, hey, this thing is moving, we're getting we're getting more. We can see in Google Analytics that we're getting more traffic. We can see that we've moved from page 8 to page 3, let's say. I'll even say that. I won't even say page 2. Let's say page 3, right? If I can move you from page 8 to page 3 in 90 days, well, what can happen in 9 months? What can happen in 12 months? So we don't even believe in 12-month contracts anymore, Mr. Prospect or Mrs. Prospect, because we believe in what we're doing works. We know it works. We've proven it. So After 90 days, it just goes to an old-fashioned shake of the hand. I do a good job, you pay me. I don't do a good job, you don't pay me. It's just that simple. And people love it. And all of my clients, I don't have any that are on 12-month contracts anymore. Now, I do in some of my southern state offices because they operate a little bit different. But in my office, it's always a 90-day contract, and then it goes month to month after that. But there is a 30-day cancellation. So if you do want to cancel at any time, that's you know, you can certainly do that. But we need a 30-day notice of cancellation because, you know, we write stuff in advance and so on and so forth. But that's how the contracts work.
Great. That's a great answer. Let's see here. Yeah. No, I think it's always a tricky one, and I think you want to. I think your approach is a good one. Let's see here. I think that the rest. Yeah, I think the rest of these questions we've more or less answered. We have. Let me just look at this real quick. Yeah. I think that need a great. What's the key? We covered the key to a close of a sale. I think it's pretty good. I have one more question that came in here. One was, what's the balance that you see between SEO spend, social, pay-per-click, and I know, Chris, you said you did some websites as well. So when you're structuring your proposals for your clients, what mix are you pitching these days? How do they spend their money?
I bundle everything together. I tell people we are a turnkey marketing solution, okay? And therefore, we do everything for you under one roof. So all you got to do is worry about your business, okay? So, you know, if I'm talking to, you know, a doctor, I'm not going to, you know, expect the doctor to explain to me how the circulatory system works and why, what I need and all this and that. I just trust that he knows what he's doing, and I'll let him be the doctor and I'm the patient. So if I'm a doctor on a digital perspective and I'm diagnosing your website and your business and I'm telling you what's wrong with it, then, you know, we will provide everything you need turnkey. That's from the web design all the way through, even if it's social media or whatever the case may be. And I just charge them one price depending on what their verticals are and you know, how big their websites are and that kind of thing. Everybody has their own prices for web design and things like that. I don't really put a whole lot of, pretty much I'd say 80% of the time I always sell them a new website because the site they have is garbage, and by the time we try to redo everything to their existing site, the time it takes to figure all that out and fix it, we could have just as well built them a new site. And I tell people that. But if in some cases they don't need to have a new website, but I can have my guys go in and re-optimize the site. Actually, it's HubShout that will do that. But the point is, I bundle everything together, and that way they don't, you know, they don't have to go in and a la carte me and say, oh, well, I can get my cousin to do this part, or I can get Sally to do that part. I can say, listen, if I can answer, if I can provide you everything you need to turn your business around and make you a player in your industry, make you a real player in this market, you know, would you be willing to turn over the keys to me and let me be the driver? You know, and people do. They trust you and they let you do everything.
Chris, that's a great answer. That's a great answer. And I do want to just jump in here. We're at the 4 o'clock time limit. I wanted just to end this by saying that we had someone enter into the questions window. I think a lot of people really enjoyed this, a lot of great comments. Someone actually said they're going to use the recording of this as a staple for their sales training program at their company. So Chris, you know, I think that we have delivered the goal here, some really great information. We appreciate your time. And again, for everyone on the webinar, where this will be recorded, or this has been recorded, we will post the recording tomorrow on our website. We've also gathered all of Chris's answers and we'll provide that along with this deck. So Chris, thanks a lot for attending today. We really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, but there's two quick things that I want to leave, I want to close with that I think will be really helpful to everybody listening. Number one, go out, and you might have to go to Amazon.com to find it, but one thing that I've had this book for years, but it's called The Sales Bible, The Ultimate Sales Resource. The writer of the book is a guy named Jeffrey Gitomer. That's spelled Gitomer. Excellent book for helping you with sales and great ideas on closing and things like that. I highly recommend that book. And then lastly, for inspirational purposes, and this is the thought process that everybody should have. If you go to Google and type in Will Smith, I will not be outworked, there is a YouTube video where he's being interviewed, and it's only 6 minutes long. But if you go to Google, type that, Will Smith, I will not be outworked, and listen to that video and how he approaches his work ethic, and use that and that mindset in your sales, I promise you your life will change. And that's all I have to say on that.
Awesome, Chris. Well, that's a great way to end it. So thanks a lot again, and we will talk to everyone soon. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone, take care.